Welcome to another edition of the Fired Up for Friday podcast. The podcast letting you know what's coming this Friday that has me fired up. And this week, we got a huge week. I think I'm doing more releases than ever before. But we got a nice mix. We got some progressive metal, some death metal, some thrash metal, some crust punk. I think this is the first crust punk band that I've done on Fired Up for Friday. And what an album that was. Before we dig into all this metal, I'd like to thank the bands, the PR, and the labels for sending over so much heavy that has me stoked to share with you. And this week, I'd like you guys to tell me what you're stoked for in the comments. I listen to all this metal, but I'm sure I miss so much that I'd like to be clued in what has you guys excited. And if you're in a band, media, label, PR, and you would like your music featured on Fired Up for Friday or any other aspect of the Metal Institute of Thrashology, reach out to me at the Metal Institute of Thrashology, all one word, at gmail.com. And if you could do me a favor, please destroy the like, subscribe, share, all those buttons. It helps me out. It helps some other metalheads discover more metal, and it keeps you in the loop of what's coming out on Friday. I think we're in the 16th episode of this Fired Up for Friday. So go back, check out the other albums that you may have missed dropping earlier this year. They'll be there forever. So go back, discover something that you missed, and let me know what got you fired up. So without further ado, let's dig on in and see what has me fired up for this Friday, May 15th. If you happen to know me, you'll know that I'm not a religious person at all, but I spend a majority of my time worshiping the rock and metal gods who had saved me. Whether it was Gary Holt, Bill Steer, Nate Garrett, Max Cavalera, or any of those other rock and metal gods, there's so many that I can't name them all here. And we all have experienced trials and tribulations in our past. And no matter what the problem was, it was the riffs and the vocals that got me through. Sometimes even the lyrics preaching just straight hate. Hate and anger can be one motivational tool. So while we're talking about gods, let's talk about the old Gods Awaken by the Canadian band Atavistia, coming straight out of Vancouver, who takes those sounds and styles of those old gods, breathes new life into those sounds, putting a spin and polish on it, making it all their own. I'd call this melodic death metal with some folk style influences in instrumentation and some progressive metal songwriting structures. Or maybe this is a folk metal album with some death metal influences and some progressive you get the point. This thing is great. It's a mix of folk, progressive metal, some new wave of British heavy metal, but it's all heavy. And what I'm really just trying to say here is this album is so widely appealing, it's going to make a lot of metalheads happy. And I get a strong, early, In Flames vibe, like on the Lunar Strain or the Jester's Race, where softer folk instrumentation and writings provides another path to pleasure. Or if you want that punishing and pummeling melodic death metal feel, Atavistia, just like In Flames, can do that too. And quite well. Just ask them, I'm sure they'll be willing to give you whatever you want. Hence a new wave of British heavy metal, some power metal feels, and there are so many dynamics at play here. With the constant tempo changes, the folk instrumentation, and a barrage of blast beats, this album still feels fresh after 5 or 6 listens. And Atavistia does a great job of presenting these songs throughout several different languages. Whether it was English, Finnish, Swedish, and honestly, until I read the press release, I thought these guys were a northern Scandinavian band. Turns out they're from Vancouver, Canada, but I was close. Vancouver and Scandinavia are both cold and have a V in it. Cut me some slack, I'm not a geographer, but this helps make that album more accessible. As with this much ferocity being thrown at you, it's these softer feelings that will allow some of the newcomers to this genre to not be overwhelmed and possibly become a cool metalhead. And while this isn't my go-to pick for genres, I really enjoyed both the instrumentation and the storylines. An exquisite album with all types of influences and sounds. I think I might even have heard a didgeridoo in the mix too. I'm not sure, but maybe. And Australia is known for didgeridoos, but it doesn't have a V in it. It has a U, which looks close to a V. Thrash facts! And whether it's clean vocals, blackened vocals, group vocals, this album has it all. And whatever style of metal Atavistia is throwing at you, they do it in style. It's done with neatly curated attention to detail, crafting entire scenes rather than songs. This album plays a lot better as one entire piece rather than, hey, I like that riff in song 4. This thing is better as a sum of all parts. But I can still see where you're gonna like one or two songs more than the other. I personally believe this was written and best consumed as one complete piece of art. The more the listener consumes, the more it reinforces the fact that even though this album came together relatively quickly for an album, it doesn't feel thrown together in a haphazard way at all, as everything here feels deliberate and with purpose. This is fans for those heavyweights. Whether it's Winter Sun and Saphirium, early In Flames, or even Amon Amarth, I think this is a widely pleasing album that most metalheads will enjoy. Atavistia's old Gods Awaken wakes up to an 85, an epic album this one is. Bring a sword, because I think it's going to help us in this quest as Fired Up for Friday rages on. While we're exploring textures, realms, and darkness, European Gothic Doom metal band Angellore has crafted one ominous effort in their latest release, Nocturnes. And this also has some more folk metal influences in instrumentation. So I think this might be a great album to follow up listening to Atavistia. Or if you listen to Angellore first, head over and listen to that Atavistia. I think these two albums play with each other quite well. Hence, why I put them together in the Fired Up for Friday lineup. And while Atavistia's album was a bright saga of galloping riffs and great feels, this is at the other complete and really far and dark end of the spectrum from Atavistia, as Angellore plummets you into a dark abyss. Nocturnes is an extremely textured album, even though it's dark. There's a ton of emotion all throughout the entire Nocturne album. From the gothic heaviness to frosty black metal riffs, the only beacon of light in an otherwise sea of darkness is a softer, feminine vocal that almost comforts the listener, adding a whole different dynamic while keeping that sheer weight of Gothic Doom. For fans of bands like Saturnus, Draconian, and similar sounding dark heavyweights, this is a well-crafted album that fits alongside their catalogs, where it seems, in my opinion, Angellore was more hell-bent on creating one great album than a one great song, building each piece of the album to show different ranges and textures, almost like a resume of influences and talents. There's a ton of guest contributors on this album, and they just add to the fun. If one is good, 39's better, right? Moderation sucks. From acoustic fragile moments of angelic shine to crushing blackout conditions, I was here for it all. Pack a flashlight. I hope you're not scared of the dark, as this is another album that plays as a tragedy for sure. And with some progressive metal song structures and some synths providing atmospherics, Nocturnes is another album that is just true to its word. This thing is dark, and I don't care how good Angellore is, we're gonna get lost in these woods. But who minds when they sound like this? And with moments of tranquility and peaceful solitude being provided, it does a great job of helping to break up so much bleak and blackness. Black plus black times black to the 6th power, and it all adds up to an 84. Kick-ass album. And while the score's only an 84, this thing is diverse. I love the hell out of this. And while this Gothic Doom isn't really like something I would normally choose, I loved it and I kept going back to this album. A lot of metal and punk bands pick these heavy and intense titles for the band, and often they don't live up to what the band actually sounds like. And not too many bands sounds like the name suggests, but here's one who does. Noosed. And when I saw in the press release that a crust punk band is dropping an EP called Misery, and that band has the name Noosed, I had some high-ass hopes. 7 pummeling street fights of tracks. As soon as you press play, you're in. And with the opening love story of a song, captured my feelings of my military experience and the feelings I have for this great nation, which so viscerally has treated me in some sort of way. And I believe these sentiments cross any language barrier, and the EP doesn't slow down from there. As multi-instrumentalist Roger Boyle tackles some of the beauty of humanity, and quite literally, as this sounds like a mix between Trap Them and some of the aggressiveness of Dysphere. Not so much the melodic style of Dysphere, though, with some of the most relevant, and I hate those, but the most relevant of today's topics. For example, on my 4th and 5th time through, I realized the last song, which was written about addiction, was written about barbiturates, which this whole time, I thought it was about the addiction to bloodshed, because that's what I'm feeling, and this album reinforces that love. And I always fail to break the habit myself, not with drugs, but with the violence. Typical crust punk song lengths, but with the weight and ferocity of this EP, it felt nothing short of a 3-day war. And just like any good American 3-day war, I see this one going on for the next 20 years, because this is a solid album. I might be playing it for the next decade or two. There's very few bands that get this old heart racing, and mostly because my wife says I'm heartless. But Noosed just makes me want to go. Literally. No lead-in, no intro, just straight ferocity from the moment the pistol was fired to start the race. And I'm thinking no one told Roger that this was supposed to be a pistol, because it sounds like a runaway machine gun pit at times, and at other times an M1 Abrams tank, just crushing posers and blowing holes in the side of your soundscape. This is no frills, with gritty production, saturated tones, and Tampa-esque vocals. Done quite well. I've only given this one an 84, as the songs are a bit on the shorter side. I'm pretty sure Mr. Boyle wasn't going after Marty Friedman's solos and precise arpeggios from hell. And while I do believe he's probably capable of pulling either one of those sounds off, as he does all the instrumentation, all the vocals, the mixing, the mastering, the production, I think that either those arpeggios or Mr. Friedman won't fit on this album at all. So if you're a new fan of punk and you're looking for that Green Day, Blink-182 copycat, this ain't it. This thing is crusty and at times thrashy. And like I said, I'm only giving this an 84, but this could add a 20 out of 10 on energy. If any of you viewers have seen this band live and have survived to tell about it, please let me know in the comments. I want to know what these guys sound like live. Bad. But if you don't want to leave it in the comments, I understand. This type of a pummeling might stir up some trauma. Another one-man army of a project, antimozdebeast, is releasing another album of passion, frustration, and rage in the Vagrant Unkempt Grave. And if you're not familiar with antimozdebeast, it's an industrial black and noise project that's from the city that never sleeps. And no wonder, this album's noisy as hell. And I thought cemeteries were supposed to be quiet. With passionate vocals, the aforementioned Grave felt more like the dystopian future that we're all headed for, and swiftly, I might add. And I always think change happens swiftly, and just like this album, it changes whether you want it to or not. And as the album progressed with well-placed samples against this pounding, crushing weight, I took a moment and paused, which had me looking around at this vagrant, unkempt grave we are truly keeping in what we call Mother Earth. But then I took the thought a step further. Who are we to say what unkempt is? Unkempt can mean something to everybody differently. And just like some people call this black metal, Some people can call this industrial too, and some just may be noise, but we all can agree that antimozdebeast captured those feelings and the literal decay that we're all swiftly approaching. And just like the vagrant, unkept grave surrounding us, no matter how ugly and dirty things really get, we can all celebrate in this filth we have. Close my eyes while listening to this album, and it felt like I was alone in some sort of ghost town of a city, surrounded by some digital decay, with wires growing instead of vines, with computer keys instead of rose petals. And as scary as Orwell made dystopia sound, I feel almost comforted in these digital bath of sounds, which are for fans of bands like Blunt Ass Nord, 9 Inch Nails, and similar sounding mixes of metal, industrial, and those electronic sounds. But I have to admit, I'm not very knowledgeable on that genre of metal, especially newer bands in the industrial electronic style of metal. If you'd like to throw me some new suggestions or maybe some bands that I should check out of that newer electronic industrial feels, let me know in the comments and I will go check those bands out. I love exploring new music, and I'm gonna lowball this score a little bit. I don't think this is an accurate portrayal of what the album is, as I feel it's a better listen than the score would show. But I'm giving this one a 76. I just haven't listened to this style of metal enough these last couple of years. But again, I'm always open for suggestions of new metal. Great album though. Make sure you go check it out if you like that industrial sound. Tipping into the gothic metal genre again, come the German growlers. And I ain't talking about Hefeweizen in Crematory, who are releasing their greatest hits album in English hymns in Deutsche Hymen. I took 2 years of German 1 because I failed, and I think I'm still failing German now, so I apologize if I pronounced that wrong. I was unfamiliar with Crematory before listening to this release. You can't listen to them all. So this was a great introduction to that band, and why wouldn't it have been a great introduction? It's a greatest release album. It has to be great, right? Gothic metal with synths that build an ominous atmosphere while punishing death metal rhythms and guitars rip at a mid-tempo bliss, while grounding vocals give this entire album a blackened feel. I think it's cool that Crematory is releasing their greatest hits as a multi-disc album. It includes both English and German songs, and this is a huge release. It's not one of those greatest releases where it's like, hey, here's 7 cool songs that you've heard a million times and it's a quick cash grab. This is one full coverage of their expansive history, which, like I said, was one hell of an introduction. Feeling very typo negative again. However, if Peter Steele was replaced with maybe Corpse Grinder, this is solid stuff, and I'm not sure how. I've never heard of these guys before. But we really didn't have Google when I was a kid. We had the Oregon Trail. Do you remember that? God, I enjoyed the hell out of the guitars all over this album. They're great, especially those bright leads, and I am glad you guys introduced yourselves to me. And I really like that Crematory is able to weave in brighter tones and feelings without watering the music down or making it lighter and less heavy, as this greatest hits album might dip its toes into the melodic death metal side of the pool just a little bit. And they don't spend much time in that melodic death metal pool, as everybody has that melodic death metal family member who you know stops by just to jump in the pool because they haven't showered in a week. But just like those family members, Crematory gives you a quick high and bye to the melodic death metal and right back to the gothic we go. And this one's getting a big 77. I thought this album crushed. And now, the album of last week. Greece is known for its mythology and ancient philosophy, which both are steeped in religious thoughts, morals, and ethics, and other norms that are used to establish a society, used to control and regulate populations. So what happens when things like those morals, norms, ethics, that become so hardlined and so rigorous that instead of a flourishing society, it becomes a cesspool of dread and filth? Basically, a true hell on earth. These are just some of the questions I have, and so do Grease heavyweights in Yoth, Iria. As a lover of both feta cheese and Greek metal, I was stoked to tear into Yoth Iria's newest full-length, Gone with the Devil. And just after seeing Rotting Christ only a few days ago, these black metal bafflements picked up the blasphemy where Rotting Christ just left off, and I'm here for the heavy. Black metal at its core, Gone with the Devil expands on that blackness, incorporating some death metal moments and some mellow death influences, creating a robust sound of saturated tones of blackened vocals. From the moment you press play, you're inundated in top-tier Hellenic black metal with modern sound and production that somehow allows all of this blackness to shine, never watering down this heavy blackened effort. While I enjoyed this album from front to back multiple times, there was a song, Blind Eye of the Antichrist, that really seemed to grab my ear. Although I did think this whole album was epic, so if Christ has a blind eye and I can't hear, who speak no evil? I don't know. This is gritty racing black metal, but it has some other feels and approaches, from death and doom to progressive and even some traditional moments. This is a widely appealing album that I hope most of you guys enjoyed as much as I did. Fans of black metal, death metal, just straight heavy. If you like good music, check out Yoth Iria's newest album, Gone with the Devil. And just like the devil, this episode is gone too. So thank you so much for hanging out with me yet another week. Head back and check out the previous week's releases and see what you missed. All the episodes are here on the playlist. What did you like? What do you hate? What has you fired up for this Friday? Please let me know. I'm always down to check out some new metal. And again, thank you guys and the band's labels, PR. I love doing this. Keep them coming.